Somehow already March H. March H. Yeah, that's where I'm at. March 8th, 2022. This is the ACT committee meeting with myself, Nick Allen, Brian McGinnis, and Patrick McCoy. We're going to call the meeting to order at 5:31, and we'll head on to item number 2, which is comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda. All righty, seeing none, we will, actually, I had one. I totally forgot. On next month's meeting, can we put the streaming of, what was it? It's on my to-do list, the public hearings. Or if it's possible, we could throw it on discussion for next week. I just don't want to rush into an agenda item that's not on the agenda. Either way is fine by me, but I'm not sure. Because we had mentioned that last month. I think it was at work session.
Yeah, the question is, should we be streaming our public hearings? We can just do that.
Let's just do that.
Yeah, it's just a flick of the switch. Yeah, there's really no downside to it, right?
I'm fine with that. I mean, I have no objection.
Feels great. Check. All right, so cool. We can move on to item number 3, which is going to be our discussion item. So we've got the borough manager report.
Yeah, thank you. Just a note on our agendas for the committees. We've divided items into 2 kinds of items, discussions and action. So if a discussion item's coming up on the agenda, it means we have information that the committee has requested or information we want to bring to the attention of the committee, like monthly reports and other things that aren't quite ready for action. That way the public knows what we're acting on and what we're just discussing. And then the action items are going to be things that the committee can approve with a recommendation to council. That recommendation can be positive or negative. It could be an 0-3 vote, but that's the recommendation the committee makes, and then we bring it to the work session. And then the second option with your action items would be to table the item for next month's discussion and give us instructions about what other kinds of information you need. We thought that was the best way to do it. That way we don't get advocates for a certain issue kind of doing an end around of the committee. Ultimately, it's council that makes decisions on behalf of the borough. So why don't we just get it? If something needs to be discussed by full council and it's an action item, let's just get it to full council. That's my view on that. Of course, none of this is written down. We don't have to do it this way. It's just something I thought would work out. At this meeting, I'm going to be doing a 5-10 minute talk about highlighting certain things going on in borough administration. I'm open to feedback as to what sorts of things you want to know more about, and we can adjust this report in any way, form, or fashion you like. So I'm inviting feedback on how we're doing this. So this report is as much as what I think is important, and what I don't think is important to bring to your attention, which I didn't include in the report. So if there's something you want to know about, let me know. I chose to start with COVID and let you all know that with infection rates decreasing as they were beginning of this last Monday, with the average new case rate going below 10 per 100,000 in the county, we instituted a policy for borough employees that masks were optional in the workplace. Clearly, COVID's still around. Borough employees have to be vaccinated. And we're going to monitor the situation going forward. But with those improving metrics, we decided to do that. We kept the signs on the doors, though, until council had an opportunity to talk about it, to see if that was something you want to do with public meetings. So we're still doing public meetings with masks, even though I'm taking it down right now so you can hear me a little bit better on the microphone. And contractors that come in and visitors to the building still are being asked to wear masks. And we're getting pretty good compliance with that, like we have in the past. Just an update on the arbitration award. We did have the hearing Friday, February 11th with the police labor union. We do expect that the draft award will be finalized very soon, and I'll be sharing that directly with council. And I won't talk about that draft award until it's issued by the arbitration panel. I can talk privately with any members of council or the mayor about that if you desire. We are hiring tons of people at the borough. So if you know good people who are want to work in our public works department, our wastewater department, our finance department, we are hiring. Our police department. The Civil Service Commission has begun the process of generating its eligibility list for new officers. That's a process that has a lot of steps to it, involves a lot of planning and preparation. You'll be able, interested applicants will be able to submit applications online through our website. And then they go through a written and oral exam, a physical agility test, and passing candidates go then through background checks and further interviews with the chief and the mayor. And that whole process can take, at its quickest pace, 8 to 12 weeks. So it's pretty involved. And that's the way it's done. And the Civil Service Commission makes decisions about how that process plays out. We hired a member of our management team this past month. Nick Fink is his name, Nicholas Fink. He's from Delaware County, and he's been working in data and GIS management for over a decade. He most recently came from a private firm that was doing work for FEMA, Army Corps of Engineers. What really interested me about his experience was he spent a lot of time in the city of Philadelphia in their Office of Information Technology, which is an agency in the city of Philadelphia charged with getting all the information out of the various bureaucratic silos and getting it talking to each other and getting those processes working with one another. And that's we have a similar problem in Westchester with our IT infrastructure, although on a smaller scale. So I was really excited that Nick accepted the offer, and he is in his third week of employment right now. Just two more things I'll highlight. We been working on our capital program and planning process and communicating that to our boards and commissions and council and to the public as to how that's supposed to play out. In the springtime, we want our boards and commissions to surface for us projects and ideas. For instance, for our parks and open space, we would be getting most of those ideas coming from the Park and Rec Commission. Now, the Park and Rec Commission doesn't have authority to appropriate funds. That's only done by Borough Council. But with their list of recommendations will come through our staff liaison, Keith Kurowski, the Director of Parks and Recreation. And then at that point, the borough staff in the summertime will do the diligence that's necessary to come up with good budget estimates and investigate feasibility of the project, so that when we come to council in the fall in our normal operating capital budget process, we have good ideas that have been vetted through numerous public meetings at that point, and we have good budget estimates that we can then talk more intelligently about what we should be planning to do in the coming year. And then those decisions about how those funds are appropriated are made by Borough Council. To aid in this process, I've appointed, kind of shifted around responsibilities in the office and added a little bit more to Will Williams's plate as our Director of Sustainability, as the point person for all borough capital programming and planning. Just means he's going to be in charge of helping us organize this information on the inside. And I think it's a great thing to have Will's skill set in that fulcrum or point in the organization where he isn't, he's not in charge of all capital projects and ideas and programming and management, but to have him weigh in on those decisions and be at the table when we're talking about issues that affect energy efficiency. And if it's a timely thing, right? I thought I'd never see the day when gas at Wawa would be $4.50 a gallon, but it happened. and that's probably here to stay for a little bit. And so I think having Will's skill set in that point in the organization is going to really benefit our thinking around capital planning and programming. Lastly, a topic of interest amongst council, the last council, especially in the last couple of months of 2021, was hazard mitigation and planning and stormwater management in the Goose Creek watershed, which we share with West Goshen Township. We are both a receiver of stormwater from West Goshen, as well as we give it back to them on the downside of the watershed. And we met with them at a staff level, myself, Public Works, West Goshen's new manager, and their Public Works department, and we discussed 3 things we can do better in the short term. One would be investigating some cost-effective solutions to do a better job of closing off Montgomery Avenue in the event of flash flooding so that we don't get as many cars trying to cross through those areas. Chris Bayshore is looking into that. The second thing is maintenance of culverts, all the openings through which floodwaters flow. We need to get on a better routine of inspection and cleaning out debris from those. We did do a check this past week with Public Works, and we've taken pictures and we've set up a process to monitor how things look and when we do it. And I think that'll ensure that 1, it gets done, and 2, we can also monitor when we do have big problems and we are cleaning a lot of debris out of the culvert, is it subsequent to a flooding event or some other causal factor that we need to be aware of in the future? So we've kind of wired that process a little differently with Public Works, because I'm sitting down with Public Works more frequently these days because of the director's resignation and him staying on as a part-time consultant. So I've been spending more time with Public Works. And lastly, and this is my last item, West Goshen, the township manager and I have discussed, and we seem to think it's a good idea to collaborate on future planning with the watershed. And we're working together to scope a study of the watershed that would identify the contributors of stormwater, which contributes to flooding, those kinds of sites that generate the most stormwater but don't have stormwater controls on them, identify the dynamics of the watershed, and then give us a list or a program or plan of what are the most cost-effective hazard mitigation interventions we can do upstream of our problem areas over the long haul that can solve the flooding issue. Flooding issue and water quality issues go hand in hand, of course, but I think it's easier to communicate to the public about flooding issues, honestly, because people understand what that looks like and what damage looks like. People don't understand as well the merits of lowering the total suspended solids in non-point source runoff. You say all those words and they don't make a lot of sense, but those water quality issues are very important as well. In fact, we're mandated to do something about that through the DEP. There are also funding sources that are specific to hazard mitigation programs and projects that we'd like to tap into and understand better. So Chris and I are going to work on that scope and then bring it to council probably through, perhaps Public Works might be the best committee to bring it up through. So expect that soon. And that's all I have in my manager's report. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really, it's really nice to hear all that. So I appreciate that a lot. Definitely feel a lot more in the loop, which is incredible. Thank you. Any questions or concerns about anything?
Yeah, Sean, just a quick question. So the new gentleman, Nick Fink, does he report to Bill Mann or to you directly, or what's sort of the organization there?
Yeah, Nick reports to the borough manager, but he collaborates a lot with Bill and Jeff.
Thanks.
Awesome. Any public comments, questions? All right, thanks again. I appreciate that a lot. We're going to roll on to 3B now, which is the reapportionment of Westchester's voting wards.
If you want to go, I mean, you could briefly explain it, but we're probably going to have a little bit of public comment about that. So I added this item on the agenda. Every 10 years, Westchester is required to reapportion the voting wards, and that's due to the census. So we haven't done it, obviously, in 10 years, and I just wanted to review with Sean and the rest of Borough Council as how and when that will take place, and meaning for the next election when we reapportion the wards and the notification. And then there's also some discussion that was brought to my attention regarding 2E and 2W, whether it be combining both of those wards or leaving them separate.
So we did find some documentation from 2012 that put in place the current ward system as of 2013 in the borough. So what we're working on, and this is one of Nick's early assignments, is to do a geographic analysis of the change in population according to current ward geography and see if the general theory is that you want population to be balanced amongst the 7 wards. And once that work is done, we can bring it to you all to help with this discussion and see if the geography is working or if we've gotten out of balance in any of the wards relative to the others, whether you could have a decrease in population in a ward or an increase. We won't know until we do that analysis, but that's top on Nick's list.
My thinking for the 2E, 2W idea is that wherever we land after this GIS thing, I don't think it's going to make sense to, when we take a fresh look at this, to split a ward in 2. You know what I mean? If we're really going to the drawing board with new data and new numbers with the idea of, trying to evenly share population. I'll just be interested to see how things pan out.
I'm in agreement. I think if you look at the biggest ward is Ward 1 by far. And so some of that population is going to have to shift probably to 2W, and the adjacent wards 2E and 4 will probably be affected as well. I don't think there's going to be much population shift from 7 to 6, maybe from 3 to 5 somewhat, but I think it's going to be mainly from 1 on, if we look at it that way. I mean, that's just anecdotal right now.
And I'd say additionally with the 2E, 2W, I think that's an issue that doesn't really affect us on council very much, but it does, at the party and committee level. So I think that's something that would have to be taken care of at that level as well. Love to open this up to public comment as well. If there's anyone here on this item. Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
East Marshall Street. I also happen to be chair of the Westchester Democratic Committee, which is usually voter services consults us about things like location of polling places and such, and we've weighed in on reapportionment before as well. Obviously, we have to pay attention to, as you pointed out, the geographic boundaries by population, and that's the only thing you can really base this on is the total population. However, you can apply some common sense things in terms of boundaries about where things are going. One of the common sense things is to look at what's been happening with development, particularly in the eastern corridor of the borough, with the new development of Rubenstein's going in, and obviously just actually since the last reapportionment, the establishment of Chestnut Square, the Lofts Apartments, and everything else. That's one of the things that's really thrown everything out of balance. It's really been the apartment and condo developments in the eastern side of town that have really thrown things out out of scale. So when you're doing this, I mean, you should apply some common sense kind of things. Going down through the 2E and 2W precinct, which Brian already brought up, you've got changing demographics there. Voter Services has a couple of times in the past been pushing for combining the two. It's an expense, it's a difficulty for them and everything else. We in the borough, a number of us, have supported the idea of keeping those precincts separate. You're really only concerned, as you said, on council. You only have one council person for Ward 2, but we've always kept Ward 2E and 2W separate for a lot of other reasons, that they get representation on the Democratic and Republican committees. They have their own election officers that operate there, and they also have their own polling places, which are within their own precincts. So very strongly, I've been in favor of that, of keeping them separate in the past, but you may have pushback as you submit this. When you develop your maps, you have to submit them up to county level. They have to approve. Last time around, maps came back and had to be done again. So I think we should be prepared for that, but making the best case for why we as a borough want to maintain our neighborhoods as we do this thing. So paying attention to those shifts we've had with the apartments, and also with our traditional demographic differences within it. Another thing to keep in mind is those polling locations. Right now, the only polling location that is not in the ward that it serves is Ward 7, which is now actually has their polling location at the library, which happens to be in Ward 1. So that's been all around the block. I really think something should be done about that long-term, about having the polling location within the ward that it serves, if we can at all possible. So that's one little factor that you might want to pay attention to, is that block of Church Street. Hey, Sheila. Right there. Really is. I didn't realize that. And so that part of Sharpless is actually outside the ward.
That's correct, right? That's on the
Okay,
200 block.
so yeah, I wasn't even aware of that one, but yeah, this is kind of factors I think you should bring to bear besides that, just, cutting the numbers and going with that. There's a danger in just doing the numbers, as you know, because there's so many things in the borough that are unlike other places, because we have the university, because we have such preponderance of apartments and everything. It really shifts a lot of things. So I hope you can look at these neighborhood factors, these demographic factors, traditional things that we've had as you're going forward, and then in the end come up with something that satisfies the county and keeps us all together. But we'll do what we can on our end to support you, and wish you well in this. Obviously, I guess you do not have to. The way I read the election code, you do not have to put this in place until next year's primary. Is that correct? Anybody verified that?
I don't know.
Yeah, the election code, I believe, specifies that this reapportionment for the municipalities that have a council that's oriented by wards, such as ours, that the reapportionment must be done in the year that the census was reported. So it was reported like in January, so the reapportionment must be done within this year, but it doesn't say it has to take effect for the election. It would, I think, be a very bad idea to have it take effect between the primary and the general election, just that it would confuse a lot of people. Matter of fact, the last time around had, as I recall, when we did the last reapportionment, and we had Chestnut Square brought in, at the last minute. They were just moving in there, basically, right after the reapportionment. Those people didn't know where they were going to vote. So there were like about 400 people down there, had no idea where they were supposed to vote. And they showed up here at Borough Hall by mistake when they were supposed to have been over at the Mary Taylor House. So, yeah, I definitely would think that you want to bring this in so that would take effect after the November general election. So that's my 2 cents on it. And we stand ready, as I said, to help where we can. Thanks.
Thank you.
If a couple of things I was thinking, it'd be good to, just in context, look at the map 2 maps ago, or the last map and the current map, if that makes sense, just to get a sense of the kind of decision making that went on there with the boundaries. I'm a little bit nervous that we're going to get back something like totally unlike what we're used to, and I worry about that a little bit.
Do we have the right to help shape that map?
I'll answer that question. We'll look into that question. I think what we are going to be able to do for you at next month is show you population change with the current geography from, when it was the 2010 census to the 2020 numbers. And then from there, you can make a decision about considering neighborhood factors as well. That's a great point, as well as the numbers.
Thank you.
Any other public comment or council comment? Yeah, go ahead.
So am I correct that if 250 Eastgate doesn't get built until after this, it doesn't go into, it's based on what the 2020 census data actually is, not something that's projected. Is that correct?
All right, great. That's also good to know. All right, this will be a fun process. I think we're good then to move on to 4A, which is to approve the borough meeting room policy.
Yeah, I want to bring to your attention the increasing volume of calls that Dana, sitting to the right of me here, is getting from groups and members of the public who want to reserve space in Borough Hall. So I think the time is good to discuss what our policies should be about doing that now that building is more open, COVID numbers are down. So we took what was in place, and a lot of this bears my pen and my red ink because I like to say things in as few words as possible. So we cleaned this up and tried to make it as simple as a one-fit solution as we could.
And in terms of, we did this a few years ago, I think, when this building officially reopened. I've filled this form out before and I can't remember the fee. Where is it now?
The fee would be $50 per meeting.
Is that what we've been doing for the past couple of years? What's the current fee?
It was a 2-tiered fee system of $35.75. So, and the higher tier being for groups not affiliated or located in Westchester. Yeah.
And I'm just curious for the reasoning behind the dollar figure change. Is it just to make it consistent?
Yeah, we didn't want to, just to make it easier to administer, honestly, instead of having to test applicants whether they're in the borough or not. And I think fee wherever council wants to set it, I'm comfortable with, but I just think there should be a fee. There are costs associated with doing this, and I think it also monetizes the use of the facilities, and I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, any council thoughts on this?
Just one question. Would a member of Public Works be on site during the meetings for cleanup after the meetings? I know that has happened before.
Yeah, we think we can support this Monday through Thursday up till 7 p.m. We're hoping there's not a lot of cleanup to do. Basically, we want someone to verify that the meeting's over with and lock up the building.
I have no objection.
Any thoughts?
No objection.
Maybe next week we can discuss this. I don't have an objection, but maybe we could discuss like the specific number. And I know you're trying to make this easier administratively. Would it be a huge pain to grandfather people in who are at a current rate?
It would be a complication, yeah. Nothing's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, if the spirit of what we're doing is to simplify things, then we
We
should
run
simplify
police
things.
payroll every 2 weeks. You want to talk about complex?
Right. Yeah. Right. Totally understood. So, yeah, I'm happy to move this along next week, 3-0. Sorry, any a little premature there. Any public comment? Okay, great. And then 4B is to approve last month's minutes, which I was fine with those.
I have no objections.
Approved.
All righty, sounds good. And then lastly, we have any other business tonight?
I didn't know it's been on people's minds, and maybe someone from the public would benefit from hearing this. Kristen and I sat down, we had a breakthrough with this Home Rule Charter Amendment. We'll be ready to go in April.
Thanks, I appreciate that. All righty, seeing nothing else, we will adjourn here at 6:02. Thank you.